welcome to another edition of the In Search SEO podcast, where we paint the town red with search marketing insights. Do not blink, because we have the industry's fastest and brightest here for you today. The one, the only, Aleyda Solis will join us to talk all about SEO Consultancy, why SEO consultants should specialize, how to build a healthy working relationship with SEO clients, and how to bring true value to your clients. Whether you work in-house, for an agency, or are a consultant, this applies to all of you, so do not turn that dial. Plus, zero-click SERPs. They're not actually the end of the world. And feature snippets are not the great savior. See what is. I am your host, Morty Oberstein, and I am joined by the great, the harmonic, Sapir Carabello.
Hello, Morty.
Hello, Sapir.
How are you today?
When I was a kid, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
When I was a kid in grade school.
Yeah.
There was this lady. She was actually my friend's mom, and she was like one of the secretaries, and she would come into our classroom every day. And my math class, I remember it was like 6th grade, and she would come in, "Hello, Joel," every day to her kid.
That's
that
cute.
That kid got the crap beat out of him every day. "Hello, Joel."
No.
"Hello, Morty."
Okay, that's it. I'm not gonna greet you anymore.
Okay, well, that's good because I'm running out of adjectives. It's becoming a task. It's coming laborious every week to do this.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to start recycling them. Hopefully no one in the note will notice. Hopefully you won't
be my
notice.
guest.
Yeah? Okay.
I don't keep track.
I'm going to put you to the test and see, like, hey, maybe you didn't notice. I already used that one. All right, I'm going to do the same one next week I did this week.
Okay.
We'll see if you remember.
Okay.
All right.
I won't. But okay.
Good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do not forget, we put out a new episode of the In Search SEO podcast each and every Tuesday. You can find it on the Rank Ranger blog. You can find it on Stitcher. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on SoundCloud. And, of course, you may subscribe on iTunes. Also, do not forget, if you're looking for SEO automation at the enterprise level, look no farther than Rank Ranger. Full portfolio analysis, by quarter rank tracking, brand visibility, and more. Look for it on the Rank Ranger website. That's where it is.
Yeah, you do that.
You do that. Or you out there in the audience do that.
Exactly.
Alrighty. Okay, so before we get to Aleyda, and you do not want to miss this one, I promise you. I know I say that every week, but I really promise you this time, do not miss this one. Probably my most, I would call it naturally flowing interview I've ever done.
Really?
Yeah, she is prolific. One of my favorite words is prolific, but she is prolific. Okay, so before we get to that,
Yeah.
okay, I want to talk to you very quickly about the real impact of the major issue facing the SEO industry, a major topic we're all grappling with, and I just want to talk truth about it because we're hyperventilating about this one.
Do you need a paper bag or something?
Why am I trying to hide a beer on the corner?
I wouldn't know.
That's my association to paper bags, by the way. Yeah, hyperventilate. No, I'm okay. I don't need a paper bag to hyperventilate, but I'm going to have a beer on the street corner later, and I need one so the cops don't give me a ticket.
Good to know.
Yes. Okay.
If any
Because in
cops
New
out
York,
there.
this is what, I don't know if you know this, okay? So in New York, you'll often see people drinking like a beer can out of a paper bag. So the can's stuck in the paper bag. Why? Because you're not allowed to drink in public.
I see.
Okay? Now, if the can is in a brown paper bag, so the cops can't search you. There's no reason for them to say, hey, what's in that bag?
Really?
Right, so you just drink it in the bag. Now, only a real idiot drinks it in a clear bag, because that'd be pointless. That's how you know you're too drunk. Okay, alrighty then. So, again, major issue. We need to talk about this. Some straight talk from Morty. So let's talk the real impact of zero-click searches. Okay, so we saw all this data from Rand Fishkin and JumpShot. We even talked about that on this podcast like a few weeks ago. So I've been thinking about this, okay?
Oh no, that's not good. Now I'm scared.
Oh, hardy. Good joke. Well, that wasn't cliche at all.
It is pretty funny. You have to admit.
Oh, yeah.
You shouldn't
really
think.
Funny.
You just shouldn't think.
My uncle got fired from IBM. My great uncle got fired from IBM because I asked him, Michael, what do you think about this? He goes, I'm not paid to think. Literally, it's a true story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, fired from IBM for saying that.
Oh, wow.
Yep. All right. So zero-click searches, if you don't remember the data said, right, more than 50% or 50% of all searches do not result in a click. The horror. To quote Marlon Brando. Okay, so I have been thinking about this a lot. I've particularly been thinking about the reaction that we've had in the industry about this, which has basically been freaking out. And I will say this because I've been very, very outspoken about Google's walled garden and its use of SERP features to target users and to keep people within the Google ecosystem. So I've been one of those people I've been pretty vocal about this on Twitter, my dislike for some of the things that Google was doing and so forth. But I'm pulling back on that a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, I think I went too far.
Okay, elaborate.
Okay. Okay. So very quickly, because again, I want to get to Aleyda. Do you remember Napster?
Should I?
Yes. Okay, dumb question because you don't remember. Do you know about Napster?
No.
No. Okay. Napster was like the first website where you can go and pirate music. You can download music and steal music.
Okay.
Look this up. There's a whole big lawsuit between them and Metallica over this whole thing. Okay, Napster was the advent of I'm gonna download a song. Okay, meaning, and for people like me, this was amazing because you can download a song and not get the entire album. Meaning, you don't have to buy the album for that one good song. Because prior to this, and if you grew up in the early 90s or the 80s, you did this, okay? You sat in your room for hours. Literally, you're looking like I'm crazy. You sat in your room for hours doing all sorts of mischief and waiting for a song to come on. A specific song to come on the radio. You're listening to the radio in your bedroom and doing all sorts of other things. And you're waiting for a song to come on. And the song comes on, and you jump out of your bed. You drop the roach. You don't know what that is either. Okay. You jump up and you press the record button. Why? So you can make your most awesome mixtape. Prior to Napster and downloading music, if you wanted one specific song from an artist and you wanted to make a mix of all different songs, that's what you had to do. You had to sit there for hours listening to the radio and waiting for the song to come on, then recording it. And if you're like a few seconds too late, you blew it.
See, I'm the type of person who would just get a copy of an already existing tape that someone like you spent hours making. How, efficient is that?
You're a horrible person.
No, I'm practical.
First, I want to give it to you. That's my mixtape. All right? So unless you were a special person in my life at the time,
I'm special.
You were not getting that mixtape, okay? Anyway, comes along downloading, and I don't need to buy the album. Who wants the album? I can think maybe of a handful of albums that wow, I need to listen to this entire album. But most of the time, it's like, all right, there's a couple of good songs, and the album pretty much sucks, okay? I mean, have you ever listened to... All right, wait, let me ask you, have you ever owned an entire album before?
Of course. What do you take me for?
I take you for someone from this generation. Like you have a couple songs here from this one, and you have, Katy Perry, and you have your...
I don't listen to Katy Perry.
Okay.
No.
Fine. Okay, but you have an album.
Yeah.
Really?
Obviously,
What was the first album you ever bought?
You're gonna laugh at me.
Come on. I asked. You have to.
Okay. Eminem Encore.
Oh, Eminem. I like Eminem. That's cool. All right.
I had a huge crush on him back when I was in,
Keep going.
6th grade or something. TMI. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
So, tell me more about Eminem and you. No, okay.
I love Eminem. Really.
All right. So, back on target, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened? Okay. So you don't need to buy the album anymore. Yeah. You can just download the songs you want. And what happened was that making albums became far less profitable than it was previously. Like I just download the song. I don't need the whole album anymore. So record sales dropped. And that's one of the reasons why today, what do you have? You have artists spending far much more time touring because there's way more money in the actual touring than in the actual sale of records because of the way media changed because of downloading.
Right.
Okay? Makes sense? Now, what does that have to do with SEO?
You tell me.
I was going to hope you had an answer. This is all a setup for you. Okay. Everything changes. Content is always changing. Okay, what type of content we consume, how we consume it. It's one of the most elastic things on the planet I could possibly think of as content. Let me just think about it. Okay, old school radio shows, The Shadow. Think of the 1920s, 1930s. You sat around at your big giant wooden radio next to the fireplace.
Okay.
Listen to a radio show Sunday
That
night.
sounds romantic.
It was a family event. No, it was. It was like sitting around and watching TV Sunday night.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's gone. Okay. I know you're not a history buff, but I am. I used to be a history teacher. Okay. Changing media through a presidential election in the U.S. Do you know this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's the reason JFK got elected. Because prior to JFK and Richard Nixon, when they ran for president the first time, or Nixon ran the first time, that was the first time they held a presidential debate on TV. See, prior to that, it was on radio. And if it was on radio, there's many who speculate Nixon would have won the election. Why? Because Nixon was actually like more on top of the issues. Whatever it was, I don't remember. I wasn't around back then. But when you had JFK on TV, now JFK looked good, right? He looked good.
Okay.
He looked sharp.
Okay.
He looked pretty,
We got it.
right? And Richard Nixon looked like my Uncle Harry. He looked like a schlub. He was like a schlump, to quote my grandmother. You're a schlump. You know what a schlump is? Like, yeah, your
I
shirt's
don't
hanging
know.
out. His demeanor looked like depressing. He looked like a crank.
Oh my God.
So it didn't matter what he actually said, okay?
Mhm.
It mattered how he came off. And he came off terrible, and Kennedy came off far more impressive.
Mhm.
Okay, changing media.
Right.
Media always changes. You went from radio, you went to TV. I think about it like this, right? Howard Stern comes along. Hate him or love him, radio changed completely because of Howard Stern.
Right.
I used to like him. Now I'm like, so want him. Whatever.
Really?
Yeah, no, I grew up. I mean, I was like a teenager. Yeah, Howard Stern. This is great. And I'm like, oh my God, that guy's a freak. What the hell was I doing? He is funny, though. Okay, anyway. Or think about Netflix, right? Netflix comes along, screw going to the movie theater.
Right.
Why am I going to wait? I'm not going to watch anything on CBS or ABC or NBC or Fox because I can just binge a series in a matter of days. I don't want to watch a whole season over months.
Right.
Okay? Sports watching. I don't have to go to a sports bar anymore. I buy the NFL package. I watch it on my computer anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Content is the king of changing. It's like the David Bowie of all things in media. Content is a chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So content's always changing, yet we in the SEO world, here we go, now we're in for it, we in the SEO world balk at the notion that web content is changing, because God forbid web content should change. Oh no, web content's the one thing that never changes.
Right.
Okay? We refuse to go with the flow.
You know, I actually completely agree with you on
Really?
this one. Yeah. Actually,
Hey,
okay.
it's my lucky day.
I actually had a conversation.
I question your judgment. Which is
Okay.
that more insulting to you or more insulting to me? Sorry, I mean
Wait, no, you're questioning my judgment
about liking what I said.
Oh, okay.
So who am I really insulting?
Yourself.
Hence the dark humor. That's right. Okay, let's keep
thank you
going.
for
Sorry.
explaining. Okay.
No problem. Like that needed explanation.
I don't know what I was.
Or what just happened? Be like, what just happened? I don't know either.
Anyways.
Who put cocaine in his cornflakes today? You're losing the audience here.
Sorry.
You're losing the audience here. Come on.
Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, for once,
Uh-huh.
I actually agree with you.
Thank you. I do
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And me and actually one of our colleagues
Okay.
had a conversation about this like a few days ago.
Okay.
And he told me that one of his, I don't know, acquaintances or friends or whatever wrote a book about SEO practices.
Okay.
You know, specifically content,
Content marketing stuff?
Right.
Okay.
But we laughed about it because soon enough, it just won't be relevant anymore.
It's going to change.
Right.
I mean, the book itself won't be relevant because you're not going to use books anymore.
That's
Yeah.
what we laughed about.
Right,
Like, there's
yeah.
no point
How
of
are you
actually
gonna-
writing a book or even buying a book.
There are some good SEO books. It's funny because there are a lot of good SEO books out there, right? But very few people buy them because you get your content from blogs and from news articles and that sort of
Right.
thing. Yeah, that's exactly what I mean, and it's true. Okay, web content, by the way, is it's changing. Okay, top level content. Okay, think sports scores for a second. Okay, or the weather for the day. That's not content that you can create anymore and expect to get traffic from. I'm sorry, it's over, and it's okay. I mean, do you really want to have to click on a site just to see the weather outside, to see the temperature outside? Hell no.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be able to see it on the SERP and move on.
Right.
It's not like I don't need to spend my time clicking the extra step, blah, blah, blah. Why?
For
Just
sure.
give me the information. I want to be out of there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God, do you hear me? I'm like committing SEO heresy right here. I am saying that the Google offering you the direct answer makes sense. And the Google should be doing this. Put your guns away, folks, because I was the one advocating Google shouldn't be doing this for a long time. So I was with you. but I am changing course.
Ooh.
I'm changing course. I know you could be angry
Get
at me.
on the winning team. Morty.
You could be. I'm on the losing team in this one because I think everyone in the industry is against me on this. For the most part, obviously there are people who agree with me.
I think people get what you mean. You know.
I hope so because it's true. Okay, web content is changing. Okay, technology has evolved, particularly machine learning, and the way we consume content has evolved, and that's it. Okay, Google can help facilitate the consumption of content, and Google can help change the way we consume content. And whether or not you're going to say Google made the change and that's why things have changed, or things have changed and that's why Google's acting the way it is, doesn't really matter to me. Okay, all I know is that there's a natural evolution of content, and it's here. And I'm sure, imagine back in the day when TV started coming into the picture, I'm sure all the radio stations and all the radio hosts and all the radio producers were like, oh, this TV thing, what a crack of... Oh, you wouldn't want to watch TV. You want to watch TV for? It's stupid. It's terrible what's going on. This TV thing is terrible. It's going to ruin your brains. Stick with the radio. Mm-hmm. But it's basically what we're saying now. Top-level content, weather, sports scores, it's terrible Google's showing that. Come to my website. No, it doesn't make any sense. Really, it doesn't. Why do I need to go to a website and click and see all your stupid ads just to see if it's raining outside or not? Doesn't make any sense. So instead, because I'm going to be a positive person instead of ranking and being negative, I'm going to offer so what I think we should be doing. Instead of freaking out about how Google's stealing clicks and whatnot, we should realize that content, the future of web content, rather, is deep content. That top-level content, gone. But deep-level content, analysis, data, comprehensive content, there's a huge market for that. Right? So if you're creating, let's say you're creating a page on George Washington's history. Don't include a few facts here and there. I'm going to get into a feature snippet, or, well, I'll include a few facts. Google will take care of that. Google, if you want to talk about his birthday, Google will show you George Washington's birthday. If you're going to do something like that, you should really go into it deeply so that someone who searches for George Washington's birthday sees the answer from Google. And now they're enticed to really learn more, to go deep into George Washington. They can do that on your website.
Right.
Okay, you should have target ranking for George Washington birthday. You should be like, okay, great, I'm glad Google's doing that. So when someone searches for that man's birthday, they'll come to my site after to really learn about who George Washington was. Deep content to satisfy the user. Forget weather. I'm going to show the weather in various cities. No, I want to see the weather in New York. I'll type in weather in New York. I want to see the weather in Alabama. I'll type in weather in Alabama. I want Google to show it to me. What I want from you is show me historical trends. Show me tons of data. Analyze all that data about the weather for me. Make predictions about next year's winter. What's it going to be like? Whatever it is, the Farmer's Almanac. Like deep analysis. Because that's what Google can't afford its users. Deep content. What are you going to do? Put a 4-page analysis into a feature snippet? No, it's crazy. The future of web content is deep analysis, deep content, so go with it. Okay, I can't stand the idea of I'm just going to target some feature snippets. That's a great idea. That's what everyone's doing. Okay, yeah, and because no one else's website is good enough to rank for a feature snippet but yours, right? That's basically the assumption we're all making. I'm going to get that feature snippet because my site's going to be the best optimized site. As if no one else in your market, none of your competitors are doing any SEO whatsoever. So there's no chance they're going to get that feature snippet, right? Mm-hmm. And you're banking your entire strategy and ranking for these things, assuming that everyone out there's a knucklehead, to quote Charles Barkley, and they're not doing any SEO, and you're going to get all the feature snippets. Now, I understand that may work for long-tail keywords, right? Okay, so, those long-tail keywords, not a lot of search volume, not a lot of content out there. So, if you do a really good job, you'll rank for those. And that's a good strategy. I'm not putting down, you should target feature snippets. There's a lot of wins out there. There's a lot of room to win a lot of traffic and so forth. But to base your whole strategy on feature snippets are God, like Clapton is God, feature snippets are God, that's not the future of content. The future of content is deeper content. Things that really offer value to the user that Google can't give them. So yeah, we've lost top-level content, but that's just the evolution of content. So unless you advocate going back to hour-long radio shows by Orson Welles, let's take advantage of the new web by aligning to what users expect from clicked content. Because zero-click is just a sign to tell us what content we should move on from and move on to.
Right. So how about we move on?
Oh. Fine. I can literally talk about this for hours, by the way. And I'm going to write a blog post about this, I think.
Oh, nice.
But You're right. We should move on. Okay, so I was fortunate to talk to an SEO expert, way smarter than I am, way more knowledgeable than I am. So much respect for her. She is Aleyda Solis, and she is here to talk to you all about the SEO consultant relationship dynamic and process. Cut one. Welcome to another InSearch SEO podcast interview session. I'm so excited. I have my favorite SEO speaker in the whole world with us today. She has won all sorts of search engine and search awards. She is renowned within the industry the world over. She is the SEO consultant. She is the great Aleyda Solis. Welcome.
Thank you very much for such a nice intro. Definitely not deserved, but I'm very excited to be here for sure.
Very much deserved, actually. Oh, so I have to admit, by the way, that one of the reasons I had you on the podcast, aside from your extreme SEO knowledge, is I want to interview the only person who can talk faster than I can. Because I don't know if you've ever seen Aleyda present. It's like rapid fire presentation. I don't know how you do that. It's unbelievable.
But you know what? Realistically, I have to say, right, because English is not my native language, and I do understand that a few people don't necessarily may understand whatever I say necessarily because of my accent. So I try to to slow down, speak slowly, try to I try to at least. So I don't know if I should be I am proud to speak so fast.
I enjoy it.
I speak faster in Spanish.
Really? I can't imagine that. That's amazing.
Anyway.
It's prolific.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to talk all about SEO consultancy, and I just want to get my audience started off because in case you are not familiar with the concept, maybe you could explain for us, just so we're all on the same page, what is an SEO consultant versus, let's say, an in-house SEO team or an SEO agency?
Yes, indeed. So an SEO agency, or usually, like even if an agency is focused on organic search and they don't do PPC, they don't do social, they don't do any other type of discipline and digital marketing that they focus in SEO. They are focused on having a bigger team with many clients. They do from technical SEO, tooling building, to everything related in SEO. And as we know, SEO has evolved in a way that is so broad already, right? And you can definitely specialize in different areas in SEO. So an SEO consultancy is like a boutique, sort of a boutique of an agency or a solo consultant to focus on doing SEO in different areas or in different sectors and within organic search, right? So, right. For example, in my case, I don't do link building as a service specifically, right? If I am doing the SEO process and helping with the overall SEO process with a client, of course, and we identified that the reason why the client is not ranking because of the lack of link popularity versus their competitors. So of course we are going to establish and develop a link building strategy that makes sense to them. However, it's not something that I will provide by myself, right? Like as many people do, that they focus on link building, they focus on technical SEO, they focus on specific areas. So in my case, I usually focus on international SEO, mobile SEO. I do a lot of e-commerce focus SEO and strategical SEO in general, or overall SEO process. And this is the thing, right? Usually my clients have an in-house team already, right? So they right. Usually, I feel that usually companies that require a full-fledged SEO agency is the ones who need everything from very strategic to even they need that someone writes their content even and they provide the content or send already the metadata all sorted directly, and so everything done, right? Like usually the type of clients that I work with, they already have even sometimes like many in-house SEOs, and they hire me to help them with specific challenges, with specific projects, with a redesign that they or a launch that they are doing, raw migration, or because they have specific challenges in a country, and they need to validate and verify and double check and external source of input of what could be happening there, right? So this type of challenges. So this, I believe this the main difference is it's very grayish, of course, because it's like, when do you become like, if you are like 5 people SEO consultancy, it's not only the size, I think it's more of like specialization. It's a little bit of a mix of being specialized on something specific, very specific, and the type of support instead of an SEO agencies. And right now I see that there are like SEO agencies that can be, I don't know, 30 people, 40 people, right? And this is growing big, right? So it's scale, and how do you scale, right? It's like the size or the complexity of projects in most of the cases. So I will say, the difference of SEO consultancy is being highly specialized, usually very few people, or it's not a solo consultant, it's very few people working on something, on some very specific areas within SEOs. And usually the unique selling proposition is that it's not that you are going to do or provide everything like as in a package for the client, but that you will be able to work along the client hand to hand to help the client to dig deeper and to develop specific actions to overcome certain specific challenges within SEO.
So that's really interesting. So you don't recommend, if you're looking to hire a consultant, if you're looking to be a consultant yourself, to be a generalist, there's really no room for that in the consultancy area, so to speak?
Well, also it depends, as usual, right? It depends. It depends. This is the thing. I will say, like, usually smaller companies, they require things to be built from scratch, right? And this is a little bit of the difference of, I will say, like, small company SEO versus bigger companies SEOs, right? Smaller companies, they usually don't have anything established. So the nice part is that there's tons of flexibility, right? But also you need to provide everything. Usually they don't have a copywriter internally in the team, right? They don't have a PR area. So you will need to do everything by yourself. So usually in these cases, it really makes sense that it's much more of an agency that can provide a little bit of everything and can provide it all. And they also don't necessarily face as much of challenges and complexity and high competition in their markets, right? So necessarily, so they will be well off with an agency that can provide it all and will be able to help them at least build the start or the basics or the fundamentals, the pillars of the organic search presence, right? After a point, I would say, if the more complexity, and the size of the business and the challenges and the competition from where they are, it might have a much more sense to hire specific help, much more specialized help with much more experience in certain areas that work hand to hand with their internal digital marketer. So in these cases, I really believe, and it's nothing against generalists, I started as one, of course, but it really makes sense that instead of hiring, let's say, an agency that, and you will end up working alongside SEOs who may have like 2 years or 3 years or 4 years of experience, and maybe the head of SEO, yes, they do have 10 years, but you won't be talking the whole time with the head of SEO, but you will be delegated to someone who's more of a day-to-day type of challenges. Like you may want to have a much more in-depth type of access of experience, specific experience in certain areas. So I do believe that in those scenarios, a specialist, a high experience specialist, might play a much better role and within that position, right?
Right. So you mentioned complexity. I want to jump on that for a quick second because, and it's a funny sort of question. I don't want to put you in any uncomfortable position, but what happens if you're a generalist and you're working and you realize, okay, so I have to get to this is way too specific for me, or even if you specialize in something and you hit on something that's just either outside of your area or not something you know about for whatever reason, how do you deal with, you're the expert, they brought you in, you're the consultant, and you don't know. What happens?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? And I do believe like we all started as generalists, and at some point after a while doing SEO, we realized that our strengths and preferences also were in some specific areas, right? Like where, and it also depends a little bit on from where you came from, right?
Yes.
Your profile.
Yep.
And it makes total sense that you focus much more on content or in building or technical optimization or much more of the strategic approach of SEO, right?
Yep.
So as you deliver much more experience with them within those areas. So, for example, when I have had specific needs with clients and I've come to realize, look, you hire me to help you with this particular challenge or this particular project, this particular process. But let's say, maybe we identify that the lack of one of the reasons why you are lacking better, much more competitive rankings is because, for example, this type of pages that you have really should feature much more content, right? Like, realistically, we have to do a competitive analysis. We see that the existing gap is because your competitors are really featuring much more content. And after a few tests, we realized with a few pages that after optimizing the content within that page, with those pages, the performance is much better.
Yep.
The same with links, the same with maybe some developments are required. If the client, they don't have those resources in-house and they do need help, for example, to develop content, to create content, doing things that I cannot provide myself, I will definitely, of course, I'm not a copywriter and I don't have as this is the thing, as SEO agencies, right? So they have the capacity to say, I will create all this content by myself and let's allocate some of the budget for content. Doesn't work like this for me, right? So I will say, look, I have, like, if you don't have in-house resources, I can refer you, and I usually work with, and there's a thing, you usually collaborate with other consultants in other areas that complement yours.
That's a good point.
And so I have in the past refer, and this, like, for me, this is the thing, right? I do want to help. My job is to help my clients and advise my clients to get them where they need. And I don't expect that I am the one who executes it all necessarily, right? And I do try as much as possible to validate right at the beginning, to verify that there's alignment and that what they need is something that I will very well be able to help with. Of course, that there's a good fit of what they need from what I can provide. However, even if after a proper analysis and audit, a validation, we identify the things that I cannot provide myself and that they are lacking of internal resources to develop, it's more than many times. I refer to other people, other consultancies, other agencies. I try to, of course, as much as possible, refer other consultants that are highly specialized also in their areas. Tooling builders, for example, content marketers, or etc., right? Or developers who are specialized in certain platforms that my client will need help with. So yes, this is my approach, right? I don't pretend to know everything. I don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. But I think that our strengths as consultants is to identify where the issues are coming, what is damaging, what is challenging the client's growth, in this case in SEO, right? And of course, if we have the strength and the capacity to provide that directly, that is great. If not, the best way to possible help is to refer and help the client to obtain that, and not necessarily specifically from us.
That's just an interesting way to frame that your role as a consultant is to identify problems. Because you always think about it's to fix this and to fix that and to improve this and to improve that. But do you really think that the main thing a consultant brings to the table is the ability to accurately and deeply identify the right problems to focus on?
Not only, also to fix.
Of course,
directly.
yeah. I don't mean
they don't pay me. They don't pay me to identify where the issues are, but actually to fix them.
I mean, like the real, like, foundational value, where it all comes from.
No. But this is the thing. These two things go alongside. You know what? This is the problem. I think that a lot of the problems that we have in SEOs is that the client hires us and we are put some goals and then we need to achieve them just by guess. Right. I don't think that is really necessarily realistic and reasonable. This is the thing. I of course, like, goals will be set, but the goals will be set after we validated that there's flexibility, if there are resources, if it really makes sense from a business model perspective for the client, if it is aligned with their values, if it is aligned with their brand, if there is alignment in general, and if there's a good fit. If there's a good fit based on the resources, flexibility, business model, the type of goals that they want to achieve from a marketing perspective and business perspective, then we are going to, I of course, identify the issues. I propose and recommend specific actions. But once that these actions are validated to be consistent with what the clients wants, is that we are going to set the goals.
That's a
right,
really good
and
point.
where it's going to be reasonable to put the goals.
Yeah.
The problem, I believe, that and this, thank you for asking me this, because this is a topic that I'm going to speak about.
My pleasure.
In a session that I am going to have at Brighton SEO in a few weeks, is why SEO processes fail. I believe that one of the big reasons is because indeed the SEO clients hire us. In many cases, SEO agencies are supposed to fix it all by themselves, and it's not necessarily shouldn't be like, it's not realistic, right?
Yeah.
In many cases, it's, well, for example, the consultant or the client won't have necessarily a direct influence. It's the client. So flexibility and resources and alignment. So it is very, very important that we work hand to hand with the client who hire us. And I think our responsibility as consultants is to make sure first that there's an actual fit with the type of client and the challenges that they have, that we can provide value. And then on the other hand, once that, of course, start with the SEO process and we identify where the issues are. But if for example, if we identify that the problem is that there's a lack of indexability in certain areas, etc., and the client want us to fix that, of course, I will put the proper recommendations and work alongside the developer to fix it. And it's part of my goal to fix it and to achieve certain growth. But it isn't realistic that the client wants to achieve a goal if they are not able,
right,
or if they are not willing to change that. So that is my point. That my goal as a consultant is not only to identify the issue, but it's to deliver the results, right? And how do you deliver the results? Being able to influence and to validate and to check that there's an actual alignment and it is feasible to develop it all. This is the thing, right? And I am afraid that sometimes that there's no validation, or the people who are working in the SEO process, they don't feel that they have the capacity or let's say the influence to say to the client, look, sorry, but that doesn't make sense, or sorry, but if you don't give us this, we are not going to be able to achieve this desired goal that we had agreed with. And these are the actions, ideal actions, prioritized actions. If you say that these are not feasible, you don't have the capacity, and you don't allow us even to provide that for ourselves, then we cannot commit for this to happen. So I think that, just clarify and our goals as consultants is to help clients to achieve their goals. That is our goals. In many occasions, those goals are not identified or are not achieved because there's not good fit of what we can provide and the need of the client. So I think that a good share of our role is to first identify if there's a good fit, because I do believe that many SEO processes don't achieve a good results because there's a lack of fix and expectations of what we can provide versus what the client needs to do, and the good fit from that on one hand, and then on the other hand is to identify what should be prioritized, because there are always going to be restrictions. There are going to be like if there are not unlimited resources and limited time, and while we are sorting this out and pointing actions and trying to develop it, our competitors are also advancing. So it's also a lot about understanding what will drive what and where the needs really are in order to prioritize those specific actions, right? So it's mostly about that. But as you can see, and this is the thing, like I do believe that there's a real need, especially if it is a complex type of client, if it is a complex and highly competitive sector. It requires a good, really a proper validation to identify if you can deliver value, and then on the other hand, if afterwards there's a good alignment on how the goals should be set and when the goals should be set, that based on the capacity and the availability of resources and actual feasibility to implement the recommendations that you are going to provide, right? And those recommendations definitely need to be prioritized. Otherwise, you will end up like wasting so much time and efforts on doing things that won't necessarily move the needle.
You took the words like right out of my mouth here. I mean, it's got to be scary at some point, to some moments, that you're going to make these recommendations. Or maybe you don't know how the client's going to take this. Is it going to be too much for them? Are they going to see this as like, whoa, like slow down here a little bit? It's got to be a little nerve-wracking sometimes, no?
This is why it's important that there is a good expectation. The first conversation that I have with clients at the beginning, right? Like, look, tell me what are your needs, what are your goals, right?
Yeah.
Which are your competitors? And then you check if this is really realistic based on the current situation of the client and the available resources and the available flexibility and the time that the client is expect to achieve results. And after you validate this, you come back to the client, you say, look, sorry, but it's not realistic that you expect this type of growth because your situation is this and your available resources are this. So even if everything goes well, you will need at least this amount of time in order to develop all this type of thing. This is why it's important to have this fluid type of conversation and that your client doesn't think that, okay, I'm going to hire this. Then this my problem sometimes that I have seen in the past, also when working on agencies. I worked at an agency for 4 years when I started as an SEO, and then after a while, also I worked for a year, right? And of course, this is why it's important to have a SEO pre-sales validation when the client is coming and selecting you as a provider, as an agency. And this is where there's an actual, I believe, like advantage when you hire a consultant, right? Because you are much more in direct conversation with the client to be able to validate that and to identify that there's a better fit and because there are reasonable expectations of what you can deliver or not. And there are also not wrong or bad type of, I think, necessarily answers on what you mentioned. Like, and this is the thing, you will also sense the capacity of the client realistically, like, oh, too many recommendations, too little recommendations. And this is the thing, right? Like what I usually do, I ask, like, what is your development capacity from a content perspective, technical perspective, PR perspective? Do you launch every 2 weeks? Do you launch every week? How many resources do you have realistically for SEO? And based on that, I will take that into consideration when I propose the ideal recommendations, right? With the priority set. Look, you told me that you have sprints every that 2 week sprints, that you launch something at the end of this 2 week, and that you had this capacity to develop. So based on my understanding, this is what I will propose. These are the 8 actions that need to be implemented ideally in the next following, like, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, based on this capacity should be doable. But please, let's sit ideally, right? But let's sit. That is why this important conversation and validation is required. Let's sit with your copywriters, content writers, because half of that are content related, half of them maybe are technical related. At the start, there's going to be a mix, very likely. So let's validate and verify this really aligns to their already existing schedules, etc., etc. And after we are all aligned, we maybe from this 7, 8, we realize like, oh, only 3 are doable like that right now. So if only 3 are doable, then let's tweak and update the goals accordingly, the expectation accordingly, and let's see which of the areas maybe it's not black and white. Which other areas cannot be completely done at the moment as ideally recommended, but let's have a double look. Let's analyze these areas again to check which of those are are doable in different ways.
Right.
There are so many ways to implement stuff that sometimes is saying, oh, it's not doable. There are so many ways to achieve the exact same goal, right? So it's to identify other alternatives. And this is when this very honest two-way communication with the clients comes very, very handy. It's not, again, a lot of clients think an SEO comes, they analyze, I provide the data, they do the audit, they recommend stuff, I approve, they coordinate whatever where development and results are going to be achieved after X time.
Right.
No, right? It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of validation. It's a lot of communication. This is where the consultant mindsets come into hand, right? Like of aligning or validating, of really making sure that you're delivering value, that it really makes sense for the client, and it's not necessarily only on pointing the issues well, but pointing them well and also mapping with their own what is actually feasible for them, and also making sure that they, of course, that they are implemented as recommended, that they're correctly validated, that everything is launched as expected, etc., and to monitor the results. Because again, this is the thing. Typical question: oh, what happens if what you initially identify is not paying off? It's not achieving the result that you expected at the beginning. Okay, let's analyze why. It's because it's not having the impact that we expected. Why is that? What are the other players doing? Why is Google is not reacting as we thought that they will be? It's because Google is not indexing as we thought. It's because we need to allow a little bit more time, or it's because the results are being shadowed by this other action that we took that is playing a much better role. So let's identify what is actually paying off to expand that, to focus on that, because again, there are no rule of thumbs here. And there are a lot of assumptions, especially at the beginning of the process, when you don't know the client and the context and the scenario, how every player plays a role in within that context, right? So there's a lot of testing, especially at the beginning, and to identify what works or not, and to optimize those actions. And refine those actions based on the results that we see.
Yeah, I mean, there must be so much that goes into understanding the client, understanding their brand, what works for their brand. What you mentioned before, understanding what works, what's their brand like, what works for their brand, what's gonna be a recommendation doesn't work for what they do. It seems like there's so much work on the back end of being a consultant that you sort of don't see. Because all we see is, okay, so you're a consultant, you come in, you make a recommendation, and you move on. But it sounds like so much of the work is really, really way before, and it's really about understanding who you're dealing with.
Yeah, and then this is the thing, working alongside them. I believe that many SEO processes also don't achieve results, unfortunately, because we don't work alongside as we should. Sometimes also this comes from a difference in the way of work, especially bigger companies, right? Like bureaucracy, lack of communication, silos that are built into every area, things like that. So the bigger the company that you work with, the most important it is to have a good project management settings. And this goes beyond on having a software. The software does only give you like the support, the tool support in order to achieve, but it's about having a good, like following certain best practices to always to make sure that there's fluid communications, that there's alignment, that the client is understanding why is this happening, that they are happy, that sometimes you cannot have it all, that this is the thing, right? Like, for example, this is the thing. For example, I had a client and a few months back that told me, look, Aleyda, I don't want us to take branded queries into consideration, and I don't care about generic terms in my sector, and because I really want to focus the SEO process actually on the bottom of the funnel, on the transactional driven queries. And this is the thing, okay, okay, so let's change the metrics first, and let's change, of course, the actions that we take. But you do understand, it's important understanding that with this change, it's not only that we are not going to take branded queries into consideration, but you can also expect that this sometimes even branded queries will drive value, of course, from a transactional perspective, because they are in the research process of the user, comparison process, review process of the user. And then if we had been growing in volume of traffic until now, because we were targeting them all along much more generic terms that were much more informational wise, you could expect that, of course, there was going to be growth also from a volume traffic perspective. But if we focus only on transactional, please, so again, like validating expectations. Don't expect that we will continue necessarily growing on volume of traffic, because we are only going to focus on this highly transactional that have much more less search volume. Please, let's don't expect necessarily on even maybe growing on volume of transaction at the end of the day, because these other much more broader queries also ultimately ended up driving also transaction and play a role in the conversion path. But if you really want to follow that path, please make sure, and let's be aligned that these are the type of actions that we are going to do. We will need to change the KPI. We're going to change the goals. It's not going to be focusing on this anymore. So you see, it's important to be that there's an alignment, because maybe they want that because of a reason. Maybe we, after clarifying of what can be expected or not, maybe they change their mind. Maybe they don't, and at the end of the day, it's their business. They are the decision makers, right? But it's very, very important that we tell them and show them what is going to be expected. And sometimes you cannot have it. Oh no, I want to still going on traffic. Okay, so if you want to still going on traffic, let's not limit the SEO process only to transactional queries, right? So this type of thing are so needed, and in so many occasions, unfortunately, it's because of this lack of validation and two-way communication that the clients, again, it's the typical client that, of course, they want it all, but because of this lack of feedback or input, after taking the decision and following this route or this path, after a while, they will say, oh, you didn't achieve the result. It's the SEO fault, or SEO is not paying off. That's this type of thing. This is why it's important to have this ongoing conversation and validation to make sure that there's a real alignment of what they want and how it is achieved. And the expectations are really, like, they really make sense based on the goals. And maybe the client came, there's a thing, maybe they were coming with this request because of they really wanted to double down on transactions, right? Okay, of course, this can be doable, or should be doable, and let's see how to achieve that, but not in this way necessarily, right?
How does it work, though, like when there are moments where you just flat out disagree with a client? Like, you think this is just, for lack of a better word, they're just stupid, don't do this. And they don't listen to you. They don't listen to your recommendations. At a certain point, do you say, like, I can't do this? Or you just do whatever the client wants and you sort of roll with the punches, so to speak?
No, that's the thing, right? And this is a little bit of the beauty of being, and one of the reasons why I decided also to be a consultant instead of something that I suffered when working at the agency, because I was not the agency owner. So of course I couldn't take the decision, unfortunately, directly of fire the client, telling the client, we need to stop working together because I cannot really help you to achieve that, right? It's not doable, it's not reasonable, the outcome won't be good, right? I won't help. Based on my understanding, I cannot help you to do the harakiri, right?
Yep.
Unfortunately, I wasn't at that position at the time. One of the reasons why I became on my own, right, is because of I was going to be much more in a position of telling the client, look, sorry, but this is not going to work out because of sometimes really, even if you try, there a change comes. For example, I have had situations where I started working with someone at a company. Everything was working pretty well. Of course, there are always things that you goes a little bit out of hands, people think, but everything was working as expected. But this person moved on to another company, or it was changed, or was replaced, or whatever. So and a new person comes with a completely different mindset, completely different understanding. You see that there's not going to be a fit. You allow a little bit of certain time to see if it really works out, but at the end, maybe it doesn't, right?
Yeah,
so
it happens.
You need to take those decisions. At the end of the day, this is all about people, because we think about brands. This is all about people alignment, people communication, people trust. And SEO is very important. Trust and allowing that and giving the flexibility and the resources that the things to be done, and also people's expectations on goals and what can be achieved, and expectations in general. So in general, I will say yes, of course I have had those situations. I hate those scenarios, because I still feel a little bit that it has been a failure from my part, because I wasn't able to validate. I prefer to say no to a client, right? For example, right? Say no, like this not going to work out. There's not a good fit, and this why the validation at the beginning is very important for me, because I feel that it's much more work for them and for me to not, waste resources, times, etc., to identify before the SEO process starts, than doing it so after 6 months or a year, when even because of the results or not, even things might be going pretty well because of any other circumstances, you end up in a scenario where you say, the best way to deal with this is just to part ways, right? To finish the contract, to terminate the contract because it's not working out because of X, Y, Z type of reasons, right? So yes, this is the thing. I have been in those situations. It happens. It's normal. Even if you try to control it and validate and to minimize those situations, they will end up happening, right?
And it's a funny thing, like if people are funny, humans are funny, because it's no one's fault really most of the time. It just doesn't work out. But you always feel like you always feel like I have the same feeling. You always feel like a failure, like, oh no, it didn't work out. But really, there's nothing you can do about it, and that's it's okay.
Yeah, you feel bad for sure.
You always feel bad.
But yeah, of course. That I think it's a human thing. Of course,
definitely a human thing.
Doesn't play out as you really expected, of course. But then also again, you learn from it, and you try to take that ingredient and factor next time into consideration when starting a new SEO process. And I think that this is kind of a little bit of the beauty when doing SEO consultant, being an SEO consultant, right? Like I have a few clients, not that many, but I do have a few clients. So sometimes things go well with one, but goes amazing with another one. So I try to think of everything that not to go into much in the negativity, right? Like,
that's a good idea.
But just to balance, because we are all human, of course. And then on the other hand, this is the thing. And it's funny that you mentioned this. I remember when I started in SEO, right? I started at an agency. I worked there for 4 years, and I had this feeling all the time that we had too many clients at the same time, and that is why sometimes I really wanted to dig deeper in some of them. But I knew that, oh my God, if I do this with these clients, I won't have capacity to deal with this, although the resources were always limited, etc. So I thought to myself, look, next job, I want to be in-house, because I want to be able to dig deeper and to deliver and have my whole complete responsibility and influence on the change, right? And then I went to work in-house, and then they told me, look, Aleyda, this is an amazing time for you to come in, and we really need an SEO because we are doing a redesign, relaunch of everything, a new platform, new design, new everything, migration, etc. This is your time. I went into the project. Then I realized that there were huge limitations of what could be done or not. I literally had the head of development saying the HTML is mine, literally at that point. Thankfully, I was still young. Otherwise, I don't know how I could have reacted right now anyway. But so I say, oh my God, I hadn't thought on that. Like really, if everything is, all my eggs are in one bag now.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh my God, this is disappointing, right? At the end, a few things were done, but not really what I had expected. It was a huge disappointment. So in my next role, I told to myself, look, next time I'm working in-house, yes, but what I'm going to request right from the start is to have a couple of developers at least focus on SEOs to make things happen.
That's cool.
And I did requested that. I got the 2 developers.
Cool.
I think that has been the in-house role where I have been able to deliver much more because of that. I have
That's
to say.
great.
However, it came to a point where the changes that we wanted to do, they were not seen as aligned with the business model.
Okay.
Of that company, right? And then it was, I had even a conversation with the CEO of the company, and he was like, look, Aleyda, sorry, but we cannot do all this because it's like, they were too afraid they will lose clients, right? Because of that decision. And I was like, look, let's make some tests. Let's
right.
This other approach doesn't need to be black and white, but they were too afraid. And I have to say, unfortunately, at that point, it was like an old school type of business model. They ended up, unfortunately, at that point, after, like, they were still existed many years after I left, but they ended up closing at some point, just because competitors were able to pivot and were able to be much more agile, and they, of course, they ate their organic results at some point because they had the flexibility to build whatever was much more reasonable to build at that point in SEO. And I was not allowed to. So it was another sad experience. Oh my
Bittersweet.
God, this time it's not because of lack of resources from a technical perspective, but it's because of a lack of alignment and understanding and challenges regarding the business model and lack of flexibility to pivot or to change or to migrate to another one, right? So there will always be resources. So short story here. And there will always be challenges, right? And restrictions and unfortunately, this will come from the business itself. So it's important that we make sure and we validate at the beginning. That is, after
it all comes back to that. It all comes back to that.
Validate that we will have at least the basics, the fundamentals to play around, to be able to do something, to deliver value, to be able to implement the thing you mentioned at the beginning of being able to identify, but identifying that something can be done of what we can actually do with, where there's actually room to do stuff in order to be able to deliver value. Otherwise, unfortunately, there will come the time and the challenge where we are not going to be able to continue advancing, right? Like, as we expected, because of this lack of alignment between what is needed and what is possible to be done.
So there's one last question just to sort of switch gears for a quick second before I do a little fun bit. I have to ask, let's say, forget the consultant's perspective for a moment, but the actual agency's perspective or the in-house team's perspective. At what point does an agency or an SEO team say, you know what, like, stop, we need to go outside here, we have to go bring in a consultant? How do you know?
Well, I have to say, but I have nothing, of course, against agencies. This is the thing for me, and I actually have a lot of respect of people who have been able to develop agencies in a consistent way, scalable way, and profitable way, building value all sides, right? In all sides, because I do see that very, very challenging. Because on one hand, you need money clients because you have usually a bigger headcount to keep, and then on the other hand, there's always a rotation going on, unfortunately, of course, and that is a huge deal of a challenge and an agency. The scale versus delivering and being able to have specialized people in order to deliver value to these clients at a big volume, in a big volume type of level. So for me, that is a big challenge, of course, and where I see the challenge coming, and why I prefer keeping it small and focusing on dealing with SEO, especially because I don't enjoy the business management part, or like like
Nothing is harder than managing people. Nothing is harder.
yeah. Well, it's very challenging, right?
Very
And
challenging.
and this is the thing. I have huge respect to people who are able to scale, let's say, to 50 people, 40 people, and still like that, being able
Really
to
hard.
have really, really highly specialized people
Yep.
who are able to answer and sort all of this, what we have been talking before, at a scale basis with a high volume of client, and from not
That's
only
a
from an
lot.
SEO, sometimes even PPC, sometimes even social, like huge deal of respect on that. But I do see the challenges on trying to do that. And I have had situations again of clients who have even in-house digital marketers, maybe not necessarily even in-house SEO, but digital marketers, and they were getting SEOs from bigger agencies, and they saw that they had a ceiling, right? Like, oh yeah, but we have been able to reach this with this type of advice, but we need to dig much more deeper into this route of, let's say, international SEO, because we see that in these markets, because we have been followed with this like rule of thumb across all of the markets, we need a much more proper understanding of what is happening in this market and achieve the specific growth in these markets. And I have had those situations like, yes, they keep working with their agencies even to do certain things, but they hire specific consultants because they are going, let's say, through a migration, they are going through certain challenges in certain areas or certain verticals, or they're going through a rebranding, and they understand that sometimes those type of much more specific challenges require a much more in-depth approach than the one that they have with their agencies. Some agencies, again, they are able to handle those. In some of the cases, it's not necessarily because they are not able, because it's sometimes they are not necessarily as specialized on that, or they haven't been, it's out of the scope
Right.
of what they have with them, and so there are so many different factors here where I have seen in the past that yes, the companies, it's not that they have moved on from agencies, they still have agencies, but for certain things, and they require, and they go for smaller consultancies or a consultant
Right.
for specific help on something, right?
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's probably not one answer you can give to that question. It's probably so complicated.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, for example, this not only in SEO, but even with some other much more specific type of services, like conversion optimization, for example.
Right. That's a
Right?
whole
Or yeah.
That's a
So
whole other
it
thing.
doesn't only happen with SEO necessarily.
That's good. At least it's good to know that it's not just SEO that's so big and so complicated. There's other things also. I have to do this little bit with you. I call it optimize it or disavow it. It's a little game that I play with my guests. It's basically where I'm going to give you either two really good options or two terrible options, and you're stuck choosing a really bad option over another bad option, or a really good option over another really good option, and throwing that other good option in the garbage. So this is the Aleyda Solis version of optimize it or disavow it. So it's a zero-sum game. You can either do one, not the other one. If you're faced with the choice of either giving some really actionable, tips and actionable problem solving to a client, or helping them change their entire outlook on what their site should be doing, on what SEO is, or how to optimize, or what they should be focused on, which do you offer? Those really actionable tips, or that really deep strategic thinking that might change how they think about things overall? You can do one and not the other one.
You know the typical.
It depends. I know. It depends. I know.
But realistically, I am a very actionable. I am all for actionability.
Got it.
Oh my God. Maybe you think about something very, very theoretical that can change the mindset or can change the way of dealing things. Unfortunately, if it is very high level, sometimes even if the thought is correct and it can deliver value, it can change even the way that things are done and have a huge impact. It's all, I think that at the end of the day, it's going to be about the execution, right? Like the what can be achieved or won't achieve what is expected that it achieves, right? So I rather, and this is the thing, it's something that maybe I didn't mention, and it's very, very important. When I work with clients, it's not, I usually try to avoid of one-off type of consultancies or doing only audits and recommendations and that's it. I try to have like an ongoing process that makes much more sense, not only from a business model perspective for the consultant, because it has an ongoing type of income, but from a client perspective, it really makes sense because this is where you are going to be able to validate and verify that what you recommended, it's really paying off. Is really achieving what you expected, and if not, you are able to react accordingly.
Cool,
right? And this is where your value comes. So for me, I think that if it depends, it's not doable here. It's not possible here. I will say the actionability because it's much actionable and making sure that the actions are implemented for sure and validated.
As my wife's uncle always says, it's better to be successful than to be correct sometimes. Even if you have a great theoretical point, it could just go over their heads. Good point. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I've already gone over my time. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us today. Really, really awesome conversation. And again, just appreciate your time and thanks for everything you do for the industry.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Morty. I really enjoy it. I love when it is more like a conversation like this. Felt very comfortable indeed. And really, really good question. Thank you for allowing me to share.
All right. Bye-bye. And we are back to your regularly scheduled In Search SEO podcast. She is amazing. Chock full of knowledge. That could have gone on by like another hour or so. No, we both literally looked at our watches. I'm like, gotta go. Like, we gotta wrap this up. But like, I had at least like 3 or 4 topics I wanted to get to, we didn't get to.
Really?
Yeah, it was really prolific. So next time, we'll get to them next time, yeah? Okay, so all of this, by the way, brings us to our Rank Ranger community question of the week, which is...
What's important to consider when working with an SEO consultant?
Right. Whether you are the consultant, whether you're an agency, whether you're in-house, whatever it is, what's important to consider before you hire them, how you work with them, and so forth.
Right.
So tell us, look for the Rank Ranger community question of the week on Twitter. Look for it on the blog post that harbors this podcast, and so forth. Share your knowledge and get a shout out on next week's episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Moving right along. So you can't be a good SEO consultant unless you keep track of the news. Right? Good segue, huh?
Wow.
That's what we call a solid pivot in the industry. So here's Sapir with your SEO news. Hit music.
Google My Business is letting some services specify what services they actually offer, which should help them rank better for local searches related to those very services.
Yeah, so we'll put a link to the article that Barry Schwartz wrote about this, so you can see exactly what it is. It's hard to describe, but you can see a picture of it there. You can select which services are applicable to your business. I think it makes a ton of sense. It should make things be more specific and relevant to searches. Yeah, so good.
Okay. Did you know?
No.
Did you know, Morty?
No, I didn't know. I know nothing.
That Google has no issue with you using multiple forms of markup on one page. Well, now you do.
Thank you for that. By the way, do you know Google made a funny statement last week? They said that markup is not a ranking signal generally. Now, I don't know why they threw the word generally in there for, but okay, fine. Now, why? Okay, no one ever said it was. So why would you say that, Google? You want a little piece of insider info? Or insider speculation?
Come on.
Okay, so I think why they said it was there's a lot of chatter out there that the new FAQ how-to markup, when you implement it, gives you a ranking boost. And Google's saying, well, like, everyone's seeing this. Oopsie, we kind of revealed our hand a little bit here. Everyone's got to noticing that. Oh, no, it's not a ranking factor. We just want it on the SERP.
Right.
So we're going to give you a boost, but it's not a ranking factor. And does it really matter? We're just splitting hairs because it seems like it's giving people a boost. I haven't done any official workup or study on it. I've seen it a couple instances myself, and I've heard it from a few other people. I think that's why Google made that weird statement.
Interesting.
Yes. Sorry.
It's okay.
I don't want to steal your thunder.
Okay, let's move on. Google has removed the exact size search tool from image search.
No. Yeah,
Did you use it? Or
I personally didn't use it because I never looked for
Me
images like
neither.
that. No, but people are freaking out. 'Cause
Oh,
they,
really?
Yeah. People did actually use it. You want a specific image size. Now you have small, medium, or large. What is McDonald's? Google. It's not McDonald's. We want information.
Okay.
Small, medium. At least you could put like Vente Grande and make it sound a little better. By the way, I'm the worst at Starbucks. I always screw up like what the heck the sizes are in Italian.
How can you?
I'm terrible, and I love coffee. I'm like a little bit of a coffee snob. I don't like Starbucks, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Sorry. How we getting onto that?
I have no idea.
Because Google is now McDonald's, small, medium, and large.
Thanks, Morty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Lastly, some weird Bing harmony going on. So Bing says that you can now verify sites with Google Search Console. This allows you to use your Search Console verification for Bing webmaster tools, and you can import your Google My Business listings directly to Bing Places.
Harmonious.
Wow, that's
Harmonious. It's good to see them work together
great. Right?
to create harmony and peace. If Google and Bing can get along, then America and North Korea can get along.
Oh.
Why can't, to quote Jack Nicholson from Mars Attacks, why can't we all just get along?
Why do you have to, insert all these
It's just the way my brain works. Because when you were
references that
dropped,
no one.
if you were
no
dropped on
one
your head
knows.
as a baby, you would do it too.
Oh my god!
Alrighty then. Now with that, we did it. We're up to our last segment. You have done it, Sapir. You've got us through. Thank you so much. Kudos for you also for listening this far in.
Yeah.
Yes,
you should thank me.
we do track that. I know exactly who's listening. How many or not are you listening all the way through to this last segment? I know. And those of you rock and we love you. Okay, so last week took a little bit of a weird turn with the fun SEO send-off question. To counteract that, I am now turning this segment over to the show's more sensible host, me. I mean Sapir, who will share our fun SEO send-off question with you. Roll music.
So, okay.
Here we go.
Here we go. Yeah.
I'm not ready for this. I didn't have an answer till like 5 minutes ago, by the way.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
My answer is also lame.
Oh,
okay.
so your question's lame, but anyway, yeah.
Hey.
Oh, come on, keep it going.
So, if Google were a fast food chain, which one would it be? Do you want to answer first?
No, you go
or?
first. Ladies first. I'm old school that way. Also, I'm still thinking of my answer a little bit.
Okay. So my answer is super simple, and I don't have any deep explanation. So I would go with In-N-Out, because sometimes you're in the SERP and sometimes you're out. Got it?
Yeah, we get it. We get it. There's no right. That's not the issue with that is not that we didn't get it. That wasn't the problem.
Ouch. Okay, next time you come up with
Oh no, I'm sorry. That was a great answer. Best answer you ever gave.
No, I'm
You
not doing it anymore.
You are a genius.
Thank you, I know.
You're welcome. Hojo's. You don't know what that is.
I have
It's
no
gone.
idea.
Howard Johnson's. I have so many fond memories. Those of you, again, from America. Sorry if you're not from America. I'm just biased because I'm from America. So what am I going to do? But if you're in the UK,
We
maybe
all have to suffer.
Right. I'm sorry. I apologize. But Howard Johnson's, they're out of business. I used to go there with my father for ice cream sundaes. So I have very fond memories. Also, at the time, there was the first baseman for the New York Mets was Howard Johnson. So it was like a double win. I would know. It was terrible. I used to be a Mets fan when I was a little kid till I realized they suck and became a Yankee fan. I know.
Oh my God. I wasn't signing because of that.
I'm sorry. I thought you were.
Because you keep,
I know. Okay, so Hojo's, that's what it was called for short. Why? Because Hojo's was a giant. Everyone knew Hojo's. Okay, Hojo's was a great place for ice cream, and it went belly up, went out of business. No one expected that ever to happen. I mean, come on, they were huge. So it's just important to consider. Google may be big now, maybe gargantuan now. It may be the place you go to for ice cream sundaes now. But there's no guarantee you'll be that way in the future. So
Come on.
That's the best I can do. Also, I like Hojo's and the Mets. So Hojo's.
My answer was better.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that it? Like, your answer is better? That
Yes.
you win?
Yes.
I know it was a contest.
I win. I always win.
I know. So you know what? You win.
Yeah.
You get to do the question again next week.
No.
And that'll do it for us at the In Search SEO podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Check out again. We will be back again next Tuesday with an all-new episode of the In Search SEO podcast. It's in search because we're all in search of something. Thank you.
Thank you.